So now, how did you get into um, doing taxes for actors? Because I find this fascinating.
Well, I've always done my own taxes. Since I got out of high school and started working, I've always done my own taxes. And uh, about oh gosh, now 3 years ago, I guess, is the COVID year makes my brain not work right when I'm trying to think how many years something's been. But I think it was about 3 years ago. I started volunteering at the Actors Fund in their VITA program. It's Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. So it's a program that the IRS supports, or that they do, where in different places around the country they'll set up one of these places to help people that can't afford to have somebody do their taxes for them. And so the Actors Fund here, and I think Equity in New York has the VITA
So
programs for
let's,
actors.
I just want you guys to know, if you don't know about the Actors Fund, you need to find out about it, because there's so many programs that they have to help not just actors, but anybody in the business. You could be behind the scenes, you could be a stand up comic, you could be a script supervisor. But if you are in the business, the Actors Fund is fantastic.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's
I
absolutely
just
fantastic.
just have to give them a shout out, because they do so many
Oh, they
great
do so
things.
many things. And yeah, when I started volunteering there, I didn't know that they helped everybody in the entertainment business, not just actors. It just started as, an actor thing back in the 1800s
Right.
or whatever.
Giving
Um,
shoes to actors.
yes, yeah, and helping actors get a Christian
Burials.
burial. Yeah,
Yes.
because the
They
actors
wouldn't.
weren't considered worthy of a Christian burial. Um, so things have changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Things are getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they sent out an email saying, hey, we're looking for people that are good with numbers and good with computers, and want to dedicate a lot of time to this, because you have to go through a lot of training, like all through the fall and the spring, and then you can do people's taxes. And I thought, wow, that sounds cool, because the Actors Fund was where I had gone through the financial management courses that they had,
With
the money
Miata,
management with Miata
Idaga.
Edoga.
Uh-huh.
And so I was already filled with like gratitude for the Actors Fund. And I thought, I can't give them a ton of money. I give them a little bit, whatever. But I thought this would be a cool way to really give back. So I signed up for it. And then I was all like, oh, pick me, pick me. I was like so scared that they weren't going to pick me. I was just that kind of thing that you get in your brain where you're like, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this new thing. And so they interviewed me, and I had to fill out a form and blah blah blah, and then they picked me to be in the class. So then I was like, oh, I hope I do okay in the class. So I went through the class, and it was like, September. I think it started like in September, and it went all the way through January and February maybe, and then in March and April was when we did the people's taxes, and it was so amazing. First of all, it was really cool to learn all that stuff and take all these tests and everything, but then to have the chance to meet these people would come in, and what I realized was that, yes, because to me doing taxes is easy, and to me looking
Oh,
at numbers
Jesus.
is not stressful. I know that this is like a weird thing that I have, that I'm like,
No, it's
oh,
wonderful.
numbers are fun. And my sister's like, you don't know what it feels like to be one of these people. You look at it and all the numbers start moving around like ants, and
Can I tell you something? Years ago, my tax lady called me. I was calling to get my tax appointment, and she says, "Oh, by the way, are you working?" I said, "No." She says, "Hey, do you want a job working with us? We're looking for somebody who just do the reception thing." So my sister, just before I got the call with the tax lady, had told me, "You need to get a job. You need to get it." And I was doing like all these temp jobs, but
Yeah.
she was like, "You need a real job." I said, "I have a real job. It's called acting." No, you need. So when the tax lady called me, I was like, "Okay, I better take this job. This has got to be a sign." I went in there the first day. I sat at the desk, and like a half an hour later, I was like, "I will die here. I cannot do this." It freaked me out. Just the little stuff the stress of thinking that I could hurt somebody's taxes, with numbers, because I'm dyslexic. I was done. I went back in the office. I said, "I'm not going to be able to do this job.
Oh.
I will stay here for 2 weeks or however long you need, to get somebody in here, but I can't. And for the 2 weeks that I was there, I would do the job because I had said I was. I would go home and get in the covers, under the covers,
Oh,
and then not wake up till I had to go
yeah.
back to work because numbers freak me out. So I love that you love numbers
Yes.
because we need to know how to do this, and it's always nice when you get somebody who is an actor who can walk you through the process
Right.
and you feel safe because
Right.
you mentioned that before, feeling safe. We all want to feel safe, whether it's working at Warner Brothers or working at Key Food or
Right.
Staples, but we all want to feel safe.
Yes.
So
Yes. And the other thing that helped me do this work at VITA was that, I'd spent 6 years doing social work in Guatemala. And so I understood, first of all, that, people don't get into a situation because they're bad people or because they're dumb people or because they don't care or because there's something wrong with them. People get into a situation because the world isn't set up initially to be fair, right? Depending on where you're born and what your life is like, who you're born to, etc. There's a lot of things that are set up, and then then things happen. I mean, we just had a pandemic. That's not fair, but it happened, and all the things that happened as a result of that pandemic are not my fault or your fault. It's just stuff that happened, right? So I knew that all of that, but I knew it like not just here, I knew it like here. And then I knew how to, talk to people and ask them questions in a way that wouldn't make them feel like, oh, because people would come in with this amount of anxiety.
and
They're like, oh, I
shame
feel so
and
ashamed. They would come in with
yes.
shame. They're like, I feel so ashamed that I didn't make very much money, or I feel ashamed that my organization is off, or I feel what, and I'd be like, oh, no, calm, like, we're just going to have a calm, easy time. I love doing this and I'm not afraid of it. So just sit back. There's a magazine over there on that table if you want to look at it while I start putting in your numbers. Just, relax and enjoy this. And so part of what I did was I would say to people, next year, if you wanted to, for example, keep track of your miles that you drove to all these auditions, then you could expense those too. So it's March. Why don't you start now and keep track of it? And then next year, it'll be so much easier. And people would walk out like 2 inches taller than they walked in, and that little walk back down the hall to the reception. And I was like, this is a need in our community that somebody needs to fill. And that's how I came up with the idea for drama-free taxes.
So now you're working with the Actors Fund. You have figured out how to help actors with their taxes. When did you decide to say, you know what, I think I can do this as a side business and I'm going to start my company, Drama Free Taxes? When did that happen for you?
Well, actually, while I was doing the volunteer work, I thought this would be something really cool that I could do as a business, as a small side hustle to do. And so I thought, as soon as we get done with doing the volunteer work, which ends in March, I will go and I will sign up and take the courses, because then you have to take a lot of courses to get certified, because in California you can't just do people's taxes. You have to do this big old course and do all these tests. So I was going to start that in April, and then April came and I was like, oh, I'm so tired of tests and blah blah blah. May, then I was doing VITA, so I got busy with VITA, and so the year went by and I didn't, the summer went by and I didn't do it. And so then I thought, well, I'll do it next year. So then I signed up again to be a VITA volunteer. And so in the fall, again, I was back in class, doing all the classes, doing the tests. Of course, it's a lot easier when you've already done it before, but still, you have to study for the tests and all that. So we went through the fall, and I said, no, this time I am going to do it. So that's what I did. So when we got done, we got partway through the volunteering, and then they shut us down because of COVID. So there was no way to do it. Like, their software wasn't set up to do it virtually. You couldn't do it on Zoom or anything. So I said, okay, then this is my chance now to go in and do the classes. And so I did the classes and I got certified. And then so that this year, this tax season that we're still in, but we just went through, that was my first season to really be certified and be doing people's taxes. And I found a place where they had the software that I could, link into it on my computer, because I didn't want to have people coming over to my house, because
Right.
we were like shut down at my
Right.
house. And so, yeah, it's great. I had a bunch of workshops that I did, where I
Yes,
talked to
I
people.
took it. It was lovely. It was delicious. That's how I met Elena.
Because my idea when I started this, and still what my idea is not, the primary goal is not to do people's taxes, because there are a lot of people out there that do people's taxes. Now, I think that I do them for a lower fee than most people do, because again, my thing isn't to make a lot of money doing people's taxes. My main thing is I want to figure out a way to educate actors and to help them learn how to manage their money, how to manage their finances, their tracking of their finances, so that when it's time to do your taxes, it's like, oh, I'm just ready. I can just do this. I can go to my person or do it myself if they're brave enough to do it themselves, but I can just do it and not have it be drama.
Okay, so let's talk about how actors can help themselves better prepare for tax season.
Okay.
What are certain things, like as an actor, there's certain things you can deduct because that's your business. So what would the let's say maybe 5-6 key things are that actors need to keep track of when they are working professionally?
Okay. Well, I mean, in essence, you keep track of anything you're spending that is to support your acting career. Okay, that's like the big answer. And so the way that I usually break it down is, think of things that help you either get more jobs, get more clients, however you look at it. If you want to look for voiceover clients, if you want to look for acting jobs. So look at all your expenses and say, is this helping me make more contacts, meet more people? Like I signed up for this casting website where I can go in and submit auditions. That helps me get more jobs, right? Because I can audition and submit it online.
So I can deduct that.
I
can deduct my website.
You can deduct your website, your headshots. If you're taking headshots, that's an expense, because that helps you get jobs.
I can deduct mileage, going to auditions, going to acting jobs.
Right. Not going to acting jobs.
Not just auditions.
When you're being paid by a studio, you're an employee, and that's just called commuting. That's
okay.
The guy who works down the street at Ralph's, who's on a salary. He drives to work, and he can't expense that. But if I go to an audition, that's on my own dime. I'm paying for that, because nobody's paying me to go to that audition. So that is expensible. Yeah. If I go to class, like if I drive to a studio to go to a class, that's an expense.
Okay.
Because anything that, like I said, anything that helps you get more jobs, anything that helps you get better at your job, and
so
anything,
all my classes, all the
coaching,
the Zoom workshops, not that they're having them now, but the casting director sessions would be something I could deduct.
Yes.
The I could deduct my what else could I deduct? I'm excited now.
You can deduct your union dues if you're a member of the union,
and my commissions to
and your
the
commissions.
Agents.
Yes. Now there was a tax law, not to complicate things, but the billionaire tax cut, as I call it, that passed a couple of years ago. That took away the ability for a lot of actors to deduct a lot of these expenses on the federal return, because for most of it, if we're union actors, we get paid on a W-2. We get paid as employees, which our union fought long and hard for us to have that, so we could have pension and health and all the other protections that employees get. So it's great that we're employees, but the federal government decided that they were going to take employee deductions away from us. So hopefully that won't last forever. Now we have a new government, and hopefully that will change. But I still tell people, it doesn't matter. First of all, you can still deduct those on California, because California said, yeah, we don't really like this new way you're doing it federal, so we're just going to keep ours the way it was. So you can still deduct that stuff on your California taxes.
Okay.
So what I tell people is keep track of everything, because first of all, the tax laws will change. They change to the good, they change to the bad, they change. You are a business person, you are running a business, so run it like a business. Corporations don't change their chart of accounts, which is the way that they, keep their accounting. They don't change it every year based on what the government is doing. They know the right way to do accounting, and they keep track of everything. And then, yeah, the tax laws change back and forth.
What have you noticed? What mistakes have you noticed that actors make regarding finances?
Well, one thing that I always say is that, first of all, I believe every actor and performer, entertainer, all kinds of entertainers should keep track of their finances themselves. Like, yes, you can hire an accountant, but you should really understand and know your numbers. So I have people tell me, well, why should I keep track? Because I get W-2s in January and they tell me how much I made. Well, what if the W-2 says you made $25,000 and then you go back and you look at your statements and you go, I only deposited about $18,000. What does that mean? Are you just going to trust that that's okay? Or are you going to have your own little spreadsheet or whatever that says, oh, looks like I'm missing a check for $3,000.
Right. Have your pay stubs.
Yeah.
Be able to match your pay stubs to the W-2 to make sure that everything is yes. right.
I mean, I've had situations where I'm looking, because I keep track of every check that comes in and I keep track of every expense that goes out. And I've had times where I'm like, wait a minute, my W-2 says this and my numbers say that. So then I call the payroll company and they say, oh yeah, there was a couple of checks and it adds up to $2,000. You should call SAG. So then I call SAG, then I call it, but I go back and forth and eventually I get a new check for that residual that was missing.
So should actors go to H&R Block or one of those types of tax preparation places, or should they look for a preparation company, a tax preparation company that helps actors and entertainment people? Because it seems to me H&R Block is not going to take the time to say you can deduct all this stuff.
Right. I think that the best thing is to go to a place and there's several places that besides mine, there's several places that do taxes that understand our business, because it's different. The IRS doesn't understand our business. If you get audited, God forbid, but if you get audited, the IRS does not understand why you might be expensing 50% of your Netflix. They're like, no, that's not an expense. But then you're like, oh, really? Because I auditioned for these 5 Netflix shows last year and I had to watch them to see what was the tone, how was the pace, how, what was the acting like. I had to, and I watched them, and yes. That's how I do my research for my job. Then they're like, oh, okay. But you don't know who you're going to get. And I just did somebody's taxes this year, and she brought me, her last year's taxes. You always have to look at last year's taxes. And there was almost nothing expensed. I said, didn't you spend money on this? And she's like, yeah. I was like, how come you don't have it deducted here? It's none of it. She said, well, I guess my person at H&R Block didn't ask me about that. So one is you educate yourself so you can have an intelligent conversation with your tax preparer. And two, if you can, get a tax preparer who is familiar. And like I said, there's multiple people in New York, multiple people in LA that do that.
Example, you just brought up a really wonderful point. Somebody comes to an industry tax person and says, here's my taxes from last year, here are the taxes from this year. And then that tax person said, you didn't expense anything last year. Can they now get some of that money back from the year before, even though they didn't expense it? Is there something they can do to like go, okay, because you didn't expense it last year, let's take that as a loss? Is that something that can be done, or is that not?
No, you can always file an amended return. Oh. You can file an amended return. So there's cost, because somebody will have to help you do that. So you could go back as long as you have good documentation of your expenses. But some people are like they have this idea of, well, I got my taxes done, and then whoosh, like everything goes out the window. And if you ask them, well, where's your expenses from last year? They're like, Oh, I don't know. I had it written on a little, post-it note. Now I don't have it anymore. Whereas I'm like, you need to have systems because
So, what are some good software that actors can get to put on their phone? Because actors are glued to their phone. So, and I know there's a lot of apps out there. So, what would be some apps that you might recommend to say here? You can take a picture of your receipts and just put them in the app. Are there is that
I mean,
anything like that?
there's so many apps. I mean, Mint is an app that a lot of actors use, and so especially if you're just starting out and you're not at the stage where you really feel like you have to manage your a lot of finances. I think Mint is a great starter. Quicken is what I've been using, and I've been using Quicken for 30 years,
Wow.
way before I decided to be
What's
in
the
the acting
difference
business.
between Quicken and QuickBooks?
QuickBooks is for people that have like a little bit more advanced needs, I'd say.
Okay.
Like I don't have QuickBooks because so far I don't have a corporation.
Ah, got
which
it.
I'm looking into right
Yeah.
now.
So
all
if
the
you have an
pros and cons.
LLC or you have a S corp or a C corp,
You might want to
do QuickBooks.
QuickBooks. You might.
Okay.
But you might not need to. And
Okay.
QuickBooks it's personal preference, but some people who have CPAs tell me that my CPA says I have to use QuickBooks because then that's how she can look at my numbers, and I'm like, okay, if that's how you do it, but
you want to be able to feed them in an easy manner, so you don't
yeah.
have to pay
right.
for those extra hours that
Right.
they have to transfer.
But
it.
QuickBooks is more expensive. I
Okay.
just talked to a friend he's moving backwards. He's going from QuickBooks to Quicken because the QuickBooks just went up again, and so he said, I don't think I really need QuickBooks. I think I jumped the gun on that, so he's looking at moving back to Quicken because it's going to be less money.
And you can use that as an expense, the QuickBooks or the Quicken.
Yes.
That's part of your
business
company.
Expenses. Right, exactly.
All right, very good. Actors should get advice from professionals and not other actors.
Right. Yeah, you just know your source. Like there are free, resources online. You can go to irs.gov, which is absolutely free to read it. Of course, it's very dense, very dense. But you can get a lot of information about taxes, and you can get advice from tax professionals, because I hear actors who say, "Oh, but I've always for example, I've always expensed my makeup. My guy in Encino says it's a legitimate expense." I'm like, no, it isn't. And I can show you the part of the IRS code that says it is not okay. The IRS code knows about some of our acting stuff, and they've already said in writing, no, you can't expense makeup
unless you're doing production. If
you're a makeup person.
But if you are producing, this is my question. I'm not telling
Right.
you. But if you're producing a production, right?
Right.
And you have a film or a web series, then that does get deducted, right?
Sure, yes.
Because that's part of
That's
the
part of making the
production.
movie. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But if you're, if you're an actress and
Right.
you're like, I have to go to auditions and I have to look good,
Right.
so I have to have, like the
No.
lady told me, I need
Mac.
high def makeup, and I'm like, everybody has high def makeup now, and so you can't just go to Sephora and buy a foundation and say this is for my job.
Right.
Now, if I go to this special effects makeup place because I want to do an audition as a witch and I want to make a big old wart, on my face for this audition, which sounds crazy, but maybe I might do that. Then yeah, the wart makeup is definitely deductible. Or if I'm doing a film and my friend isn't paying me to do the film and she's like, "Oh, can you do your own makeup?" And I'm like, "Okay, I had to buy my own wart makeup to be the witch or whatever."
Right.
Then it's expensible.
Okay.
But if I just buy
Just regular,
eyeliner and
right.
eyebrow powder,
That's
it's
not
not
gonna happen.
expensible. Also, if I go to the gym, unless I'm being hired, like if they hire me and they say, "Elena, we want you to be this superhero and you're going to have to lift 50 pounds in the movie," and no, we're not paying for your training. First of all, I talk to my agent and say, "Can you talk to them about that? Because they should pay for my training." But if they don't want to pay for my training and I really want to do the role, I'm going to go out and get a trainer. I'm going to get myself up to the 50 pound, I can lift 50 pounds. And then if anybody asks me, why did you expense this trainer?
It was for that part.
I have a contract that says, my contract said I had to be able to lift 50 pounds or else I couldn't be in the movie.
Okay.
But that's so rare. If you're a
Right.
stunt person, it's probably not that rare. But if you're just a regular person like us, it's not.
Right.
Doesn't happen.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to cover for actors?
Keep written records.
So,
keep organized written records.
You've said that
everything.
20 times.
And I can't
say it
enough.
again.
Keep organized written records of everything that comes in and everything that goes out. And then check to see if it's correct, because again, the payroll companies, it's not that they make mistakes, it's that checks get lost still in this day and age. I just followed up the other day on something. I was like, hey, it seems like I should have gotten more money on this commercial. And then, the payroll company says, we sent it to your agent. The agent's like, we don't have it. And then later in the day, they're like, oh, here it is. And they found it and they sent it to me the next day. Like you just like the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Right. You have to be business minded as an actor. Well, I believe that every actor, when they come into the guild, it should be mandatory that they take Miata's class, that they should take a financial wellness class so that they're prepared, because a lot of times actors don't know, and they are raised with shame.
Yes.
You had mentioned about asking your father how much money he made.
Yeah, it was an innocent question, Daddy, how much money do you make? And it was like, oh my God, polite people don't talk about money. You never, ever, ever ask somebody how much money they make. It was like, he let me know that was so shameful, like maybe as if I'd asked about sex or something like that. And I carried that for decades. For decades, I didn't talk about money. I never asked anybody, how much do you make? I never talked about how much money I made. I had a boyfriend when I was like 30 who asked me how much money I made. And I was like, oh, and he was my boyfriend. And I was all like, wow, that's really personal. But it wasn't until I took the money management class with Miata that I started unpacking some of that stuff and going, wow, it's a miracle that I've really, gotten as far as I have with my finances, because I was kind of messed up with my baggage from my parents.
Yeah, it's so important to keep it, to keep those boundaries, and know that money is not emotional. We make it emotional.
Right.
As that scripture in the Bible that says, the love of money is the root of all evil. It's not money that's the root of all evil. It's the love of it. And if you see it like it's a dirty word, you don't share with people, it keeps you in bondage.
Yes.
It is so restrictive. So how can you do art if you're restricted?
Right.
And you got to eat. There's another scripture in the Bible, not to get biblical, but there's another scripture in the Bible that says money answers all things. It's real simple. Money answers all things. So you need money. And there's one more that says money, basically, I'm paraphrasing it, but basically it's, if you don't have money, you don't have friends. It's in the Bible. I will find the scripture. I will give it to you guys later. But it is. But yet we don't embrace it as part of. You got your shot. You did you had your checkup. We don't look at money in a practical way.
Right.
Especially as actors, we're waiting for that big job to come.
And that big job is not going to solve anybody's problems if you haven't already looked at your issues and figured out how to have a healthy relationship with money. You have to have a healthy relationship with your finances. That was kind of an eye-opening thing for me when I took the course that we both took, because I didn't realize, like I had never thought about it that way, that, oh, I should have a relationship with money. Any relationship that you have in your life that you ignore or are ashamed of, or you hide, or sometimes you're in, sometimes you're out, that's not going to be a healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. And I can't choose to have or not have a relationship with money, because, money is for all things, right? We need money to live. I don't want money for money. Right. I want money for what it can give me. It can give me food on my table. It can give me a comfortable home. It can give me freedom that someday maybe I might want to just sit by a lake and not work at all. I can't imagine that because I love my job, but you know what I mean. Like
Right.
the freedom, everybody has a different,
Right.
definition of what money can give. Maybe money can give me the chance, like it did when I was younger, to go for 6 years to Guatemala and not make any money and do what I wanted to do, which was to be of service. So I think you have to have a healthy relationship with money, and you can't do it unless you look at it, and you can't do it alone. That's my other mantra that I have.
Right.
I can't do anything by myself.
And also,
Anything's important, I can't do it alone.
when you book work today, it's not like when you did 15 years ago that you could have, you could get on a series and really make a good living. Now you can get on a show, but that show may not pay you very well. And so, what are the other streams of income? You got to think in terms of having like a business. You have to have other streams of income coming in. So if you're acting, then you should also maybe look into voiceover work, or look into speaking gigs, or look into narrating audiobooks.
Yeah.
You want to have different streams so you're not waiting for that big TV show, because there is no more big TV show. It's not like it was at a certain time of at a certain period. People made a good living, and they got the residuals and everything was good. But then when cable came in, stuff started getting cut, and then you had more channels to fill, and those channels couldn't afford to pay the big actors, so they got little actors. So you got so you have all these cable shows that have actors on it, but they're not making the type of money that that the audience thinks they are. So now you're having a facade that you have to put on, because people say, so you must be making millions of dollars, you're on TV. No, I'm just on TV, but it's not that kind of party. I made that $25. I spent it at Burger King, and now I got to get some more money. And so it's that thing that you have to, that's what I love about Miata is she goes, okay, where are your other streams of income? Where is money coming in? Because you can't, even if you made a decent living getting TV parts throughout the year, how many TV parts would you need in order to be okay? And then it puts everything into perspective. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I need other things to come in.
You get clear. You get very clear on what the numbers are.
Yes.
And I heard a podcast last year, I think, or year before, where they were breaking down, I think it was on Audrey Loves Actors, and they were breaking down what a series regular booked in Canada makes, and then the taxes and the way that residuals work on those Canadian shows and blah, 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 blah. And at the end, you're like, oh my gosh, how do you afford to move to Canada for 9 months to do that? Like, how do you literally afford it? Because that's really not very much money, what it ends up being. And so you just have to get clear, and you have to be clear that you can book a series regular on a big show. If a pandemic happens and they decide to cancel the show after 2 episodes, and then what if, you're on a big show and then the number one on the call sheet, he has some kind of, Bill Cosby-esque kind of scandal, the show gets shut down. I mean, there's like so many things that can happen. You can't just put all your eggs in that one. As soon as I get my series regular, all my problems will be solved.
Right. And you're not in control. You're
No.
not in control of anything. So you better take care of yourself financially in other ways. There's so many little side hustles you can do to take care of yourself. I'll say this last thing. Marla Gibbs, who was in The Jeffersons, for the first 3 years, I believe, that she was on that series, she did not quit her job.
That's right.
The first 3 years, she was like, yeah, I don't know if this is gonna last. And that always stood with me. Yeah, just hearing that story to go, oh, okay, because you think, oh, I got a TV show now, I can quit my job.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work like that.
Right.
And so
she had kids, she had to take care of her family, and she was smart about money. That's like, I love that. I love that story. I love Marla.